Have you heard of the Amish? They are a group of people who live in isolation, rejecting the modern world, or the Hutterites, closed communities that live almost as they did in the distant past. And the Kurds? A people scattered across several countries, but without their own state. Yes, all these groups attract attention, and we even have videos here on the channel that talk about them. So after this video, be sure to check them out. One thing is certain, all these videos will make you feel strange, surprised, and even angry. But what we are going to tell you now is a different story. Imagine a community where not everyone knows their own religion, where parents cannot reveal their beliefs to their children, where surviving meant, for centuries, pretending to be something else. A people without a country, who do not want a country, but who are scattered throughout the Middle East, living as eternal foreigners in lands they have inhabited for centuries. They keep secrets so deep that not even everyone within their own community has access to them. And now, in the year 2025, they are surrounded by wars and pressures that may force them to reveal what they have always hidden, or disappear while trying to protect their mysteries. You've probably never heard of them, but after today, you'll never forget them. That's why Bello Mundo crosses borders to tell the story of the Druze, a homeless people with one of the most secretive religions in the world, who continue to exist against all odds. Number 1. Location and general information. If you open a map, you won't find the land of the Druze. They simply don't have a country. But that doesn't mean they are a nomadic or refugee people. On the contrary, the Druze have lived for centuries in the same villages, cultivating the same lands, mainly in the mountains of the Middle East. In Syria, they are concentrated in the south, in the Suwaida region, known as Jabal al-Druze, the mountain of the Druze. It is the only part of the world where they are an absolute majority, numbering around 700,000 people. In Lebanon, approximately 300,000 live, mainly in the Chuf Mountains, a region of green hills and villages that have become the political heart of the community. In Israel, there are about 150,000, concentrated in Galilee and Mount Carmel. In the Golan Heights, Syrian territory occupied by Israel since 1967, another 20,000 Druze live. Most of them refuse Israeli citizenship and continue to consider themselves Syrian, creating a situation of divided identity that has lasted for more than 5 decades. In Jordan, there are smaller communities, numbering around 20,000 people. And beyond the Middle East, there is a diaspora scattered around the world. 60,000 live in Venezuela, and another 50,000 in the United States. Despite this distribution, there is one detail that makes the Druze different from other peoples without territory. They have never sought to create their own country. While the Kurds dream of Kurdistan and the Palestinians fight for a state, the Druze follow a different logic. One of the principles of their faith is to show absolute loyalty to the country where they live, whatever it may be. That is why they always appear as an adapted minority, respecting the state they are in, but at the same time maintaining their own identity. And to understand where this very particular stance comes from, we need to go back to the beginning of the Druze history. Number 2. Who are the Druze? The Druze call themselves Muwahidun, the Unitarians, those who believe in the oneness of God. Interestingly, the nickname by which they became known did not come from them, but from Muhammad al-Darazi, one of the first preachers of the faith, who ended up being rejected as a heretic. In practice, they speak Arabic, share habits with their neighbors, but retain an identity that has never dissolved. Recent studies have shown something surprising. The origin of these people dates back to the mountains of northeastern Turkey, Armenia, and northern Iraq. There, in the Zagros mountain range and on the slopes of Ararat, lie their oldest roots. This would explain why, even though they have been surrounded by Arabs for centuries, they have remained relatively isolated. Even more curiously, scientists have found an unexpected genetic link with Ashkenazi Jews, suggesting common ancestors in that same mountainous region. But identity here is not a matter of DNA, it is a matter of birth. Since the year 1046, the religion has not accepted conversions. You can only be part of it if you were born into it. Marriages outside the community are extremely rare and frowned upon, and when they do happen, the children are not recognized as part of the faith. This closed-off nature has created one of the most cohesive communities in the modern world. Research shows that 99% of members say they are proud of their origins, and less than 1% marry outside the group. It is almost a world record for cultural preservation. And this is no accident. This sentiment has been shaped by 1,000 years of persecution, flight, and survival strategies. To understand how they got here, we need to go back in time and visit the place where it all began. Number 3. A story. The narrative begins in Cairo in the early 11th century when Caliph al-Hakim, bi Amr Allah, ruled the Fatimid Caliphate. He was famous for his eccentricities. He banned the consumption of shellfish, ordered markets to operate at night, and even ordered the death of all dogs in the city. To some, he was an eccentric and unpredictable ruler. To others, he was a divine leader. It was in this context that a group of followers emerged who believed that al-Hakim was not just a caliph, but the very manifestation of God on earth. And needless to say, it caused quite a stir. For Orthodox Islam, this was absolute heresy. The new doctrine found followers in the mountains of Lebanon and Syria. There, far from the centers of power, a faith flourished that mixed Islamic monotheism, Greek Neoplatonic philosophy, belief in reincarnation, and ancient traditions. 4 years later, al-Hakim mysteriously disappeared during a nighttime stroll. For the faithful, he did not die, but only went into hiding, waiting for the moment to return at the end of time. For his enemies, he was murdered, perhaps even by his own sister. His disappearance marked the beginning of persecution. In Egypt, followers were massacred. Those who survived fled to remote regions of the Levant. It was in this context that a practice emerged that would accompany them for centuries: taqiyya. In times of danger, they could disguise their faith, praying as Sunni Muslims, fasting during Ramadan, even making the pilgrimage to Mecca, while secretly maintaining their rituals. This ability to adapt became almost a survival instinct. During the Crusades, they played both sides. In the Ottoman Empire, they paid taxes like ordinary Muslims, but maintained autonomy in the mountain villages. In the 19th century, when Protestant missionaries arrived in the Middle East, some pretended to convert to Christianity just to gain access to schools and hospitals. Once again, the strategy was clear: to survive. With the end of the Ottoman Empire in the 20th century came the division of borders, and they ended up scattered between Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and what would become Israel. In Syria, they even had a small autonomous state, Jabal al-Druze, under French mandate. In Lebanon, they gained political strength with leaders such as Kamal Jumblat. In Israel, they would make the most controversial choice of their history. Number 4. The controversial pact with Israel. When the State of Israel was born in 1948, the entire Middle East was divided into battlefields. Arab peoples rejected the creation of the new country and went to war. However, in the midst of this scenario, one group decided to take a different path. While their Muslim neighbors boycotted, the Druze communities living in Galilee and Mount Carmel made an unexpected decision. They accepted compulsory military service alongside Israeli Jews. This pact changed everything. Since then, young Druze have worn the uniform of the Israel Defense Forces, even fighting in wars against Arab countries from which many of them descend. It is a choice that generates pride in some and mistrust in others. For the Tel Aviv government, it was a demonstration of loyalty. Part of the answer is pragmatic. Military service in Israel opens doors, jobs, social benefits, status. Part is theological. Jethro, the prophet most revered by the Druze, was Moses' father-in-law and helped the Israelites in the desert. Some Druze interpret this as a sacred duty to protect the Jewish people, but mainly it is a survival strategy. By demonstrating absolute loyalty, they guarantee protection. And Israel reciprocates. When Druze are attacked in Syria or Lebanon, Israel often intervenes. Netanyahu calls this a blood pact. However, this alliance creates painful dilemmas. Israeli Druze soldiers have bombed Druze villages in Lebanon. During military operations, they may be shooting at people who share their faith, their language, even family ties. The situation in the Golan Heights adds another layer of complexity. Of the 20,000 Druze living in this occupied territory, most have refused Israeli citizenship. They hold Syrian documents, study the Syrian curriculum, but work in Israel and depend on its economy. With the Syrian civil war and recent events, some have begun to reconsider. Applications for Israeli citizenship have increased, but when violence erupted in Sueda in 2025, many Druze from the Golan tried to cross the border to help relatives. Some did so illegally. It's an impossible loyalty to reconcile. How do you maintain community unity when political borders force you to choose sides in conflicts where both sides are your brothers? Number 5. The world's most secretive religion. Now we come to the heart of this community's mystery, their faith. Think of a religion in which the majority of the faithful, around 80%, never get to know their own sacred teachings, where the books are locked away and only a small elite has access to them, where there is no conversion, no proselytizing, and no obligation to pray at fixed times. This is their religious universe. The community is divided into two groups. The Yuqal, a word meaning those who know, represent about 20% of the population. They are initiated men and women who have access to the sacred texts and follow a strict religious life. They are identifiable by their appearance. The men wear dark tunics and white turbans, and the women cover themselves with translucent white veils. On the other side are the Juhal, the ignorant. They are the majority, live their faith in a simple way, follow a moral code, but do not have access to the books or secret rituals. For them, not knowing is part of the system itself. The sacred books are called Rasa'il al-Hikmah, which can be translated as Epistles of Wisdom. There are 6 volumes with 111 epistles, and if the name seems complicated, it's easy. An epistle is basically a letter or a teaching written in the form of a message. Tradition states that in the beginning there were 24 volumes, but 18 were lost or hidden over the centuries. What little we know comes from scholars. They believe in 5 cosmic principles, each linked to a color: green for the universal mind, red for the universal soul, yellow for the word, blue for the cause, and white for the effect. Another central point is reincarnation, but with one striking difference. They believe that a Druze is always reborn as a Druze. When someone dies, their soul is immediately reborn in another baby in the community, with no heaven or hell, just an eternal cycle of lives until perfection is achieved. They revere prophets from various traditions, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, but also philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle. The most important prophet, however, is Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, who even has an annual pilgrimage dedicated to him. Meetings take place on Thursdays, not Fridays as in Islam. They are held in simple buildings called khalwat, which means retreat, always without symbols or decorations. For them, external rituals are distractions. Faith must be lived from the inside out. And it is precisely this secrecy that arouses suspicion among their neighbors, but has also protected the community for almost 1,000 years. Number 6. Culture and traditions that stand the test of time. But it is not only silence that they live by. Outside the temples, community life thrives. Hospitality, for example, is a true calling card. There is a saying among them, "The guest is sent by God." Any visitor is offered strong Arabic coffee, fresh fruit, and if it is mealtime, a lavish table. Refusing is almost an offense. The cuisine has a mountain flavor. Dishes such as kibi, mansaf, lamb with rice and yogurt, and musakane, chicken with caramelized onions and spices, appear on the tables. But the highlight is the famous Druze bread, a thin dough baked on a stone, stuffed with cheese, za'atar, and vegetables. In religion, alcohol and pork are forbidden. Among the initiated, even tobacco is prohibited. But in everyday life, cuisine, music, and gatherings keep the joy alive. Appearance also tells stories. Religious initiates are easy to identify. Men wear the shirwal, traditional loose-fitting pants, with a white shirt and dark jacket. On their heads, they wear a white turban. Women wear the mandil, a transparent white veil that lightly covers the face. Non-initiates dress like any neighbor, but at parties and weddings, everyone wears traditional costumes. Wedding parties are huge. One of the most memorable moments is henna night, when the bride has her hands and feet painted with designs while women sing traditional songs passed down from generation to generation. The music is marked by the mijwiz, a double bamboo flute that emits a continuous hypnotic sound. At parties, the most common dance is the dabke, in which groups dance in a line or circle, stamping their feet hard on the ground. Education is hugely important. The literacy rate is extremely high, and many families do everything they can to send their children to university, even in small villages. Women also play a prominent role. They can be ukol, participate in religious and political decisions, inherit property, and even file for divorce, something rare in the Middle East. And strongest of all is their internal solidarity. There is a religious commandment called protection of brothers. If a member of the community needs help anywhere in the world, everyone mobilizes. This is what has kept the group united and alive for centuries, even without a homeland. Number 7. The future of a people without a homeland. Talking about the future of the Druze is like trying to solve a puzzle. They have existed for over 1,000 years without a homeland, scattered across several countries, always a minority, always walking a tightrope between integrating and preserving their own identity. And interestingly, this balance is exactly what has allowed them to survive until now. Today, most live in unstable regions. In Lebanon, where political disputes never end. In Syria, still marked by war and destruction. In Israel, in the midst of an eternal conflict with Palestinians. And in Jordan, where they live as a small but respected community. It is as if each country gave them a different role, and they learned to play on all boards at the same time. And that is precisely what raises the big question. What will their lives be like in the coming decades? Some analysts believe that this pragmatic loyalty may be the key to their continued existence. Others fear that, with globalization, Druze youth will end up straying from tradition. After all, the secrecy of the religion, the division between Ukal and Juhal, marriage only within the community. All of this is increasingly difficult to maintain in a world connected by social media. At the same time, the diaspora is growing. Tens of thousands live in the United States and Venezuela, sending money back to villages in the Middle East. These immigrants serve as a global support network, but they also bring inevitable cultural changes. In the end, the Druze face a dilemma: how to remain the most secretive people in the world in an age where everything is exposed. How to preserve a faith based on mystery when the mystery itself is increasingly difficult to sustain. What seems certain is that even without a flag, a country, or their own territory, they will continue to exist. And so we end our journey through the secret world of the Druze, a people who have lived among us for 1,000 years, guarding mysteries that may never be fully revealed. So, had you heard of the Druze before? Do you think a people can survive forever without a country to call their own? Or will they sooner or later end up revealing their secrets to adapt to the modern world? Tell us what you think about this mysterious people in the comments. And if you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss our next stories about peoples and places that almost no one knows about. See you on our next trip here at Bello Mundo.